What's up, guys? How is everybody doing? Going live in a minute or two. I had to start it up a couple minutes early because I was just shuffle playing that Stream Beats playlist and wasn't feeling the vibe. Kind of put a damper on the beginning of the stream. Too mellow, too mellow. But got to use music that is not copyright. So, what's up, guys? Everything sounds good. Sound is good. Get it started in a minute. Let everyone sort of situate. Enter. Just reshared the link on Twitter. So do a sound check, and then we'll get it started. We will get it started. What's going on? Schwanson, X Factor, Cornholio, Rodero, Bryman, MW, Dregs, Glenn, CryptoJet, EM3. Cool. So, let's, okay, sound is great as always. Do not be sarcastic with me, Cornholio. The sound is recently only fixed. Such a silly mistake. All right, so we'll get it going in a minute. It's not 12 yet, so I said we're starting at 12. So for those of you that are here, if you're new, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Give us all that good love. What's going on? What's going on, TE, Agent Smith, Gladdy, Glenn? Where did I leave my day? My day has been good so far. So far has been good. I was just looking around for my cup of coffee, but all right, sound is actually good. Yeah, we fixed it. So, all right, cool. So, welcome to the stream, everybody. My name is Ryan, also known as Cantering Clark, and on behalf of myself and my partner Josh Rager, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, all the pleasantries in the beginning of the stream. Reminder: this is not financial advice. Whatsoever. This is strictly for entertainment purposes only, like the movies, right? No, but it's, if I'm doing a stream, it's just my opinions, right? My opinions on the market, how I look at the market, the lens I look at the market through. If Josh does a stream, same thing. Like, don't go take this and remortgage your house and go long BTC or do anything like that. These are, again, just our opinions. Do not take any of this as financial advice. We're not specifically giving advice to anybody. So if you hit me up in my DMs and you ask me specifically what to do with money, honestly, guys, I've been getting so many messages lately. I don't respond. So it is what it is. I'm sure you have a great story. I'm sure some of you, I'm sure some of you have a compelling story. But I need a secretary to field all the messages that I have and to filter out the legit ones. All right, so that being said, just as a reminder, you can see on the bottom right-hand portion of the screen, we are partners with Phemex. So I know you guys know that now. If you use the link Phemex.trade, you get access to whatever promotion that they're running. And I think if you use our link, you get an extra bonus. Trade on the exchange if you like the exchange, though, right? And, I don't want to kind of drill things down your throat, but they actually just added some new pairs. So they finally added things like sushi, they added Aave, they added SNX. They're adding more and more pairs now because they're a new exchange. So they had their hands full with onboarding all of the new retail participants that we saw enter into the market. And you could see it drastically in their 24-hour trading volume, how they jumped. Because again, they were new. One of the complaints is the illiquidity, and that only comes when your customers come, right? So now that they have the exchange, let's just say, up and running perfectly, and they have everyone onboarded and everything is working smoothly, it's time to just add projects and add what everyone wants to trade, spot and contract. So you can have spot BTC and you could trade leverage BTC. Same with their other pairs as well. Okay, which is, I think it's really important right now because there's a lot of people that are trading contracts and they're trading with leverage and they're losing their exposure in a time where you don't want to lose your exposure. You want to own the underlying, and a lot of these, and especially with alts, people are trading alts, and it's like alts are leverage plays on the higher market cap coins either way. They're like higher beta, as I've said before, if you're going to sort of look at them the same way you would look at stocks. Okay, so all that aside, let me just exit some things. So again, if you want to sign up at Phemex, it's Phemex.trade, where you will get You'll get a reduced taker fee, right? So that adds up. And you will also get a trading bonus. So let me just take a look at the chat. I'm not going to do the switching in and out of the chat where I have a cut screen where it's just the horse head, and time to time I pop my face up on there, because then you know what I'll do, guys. I will not transition the screen, and I'll go to a chart, and 10 minutes later someone will be saying we can't see the chart still on the fucking chat screen. So we know that I have a history of doing that. Okay, so good morning to everybody. Good afternoon. It's good to be back. Had a little bit of a family thing recently with my grandmother, but it's good to be back. So we're going to take a look at BTC. We're going to take a look at Ethereum because this is the Ethereum special. I've converted a substantial portion of my Bitcoin actually to Ethereum. So and I'm talking a substantial amount. So we'll look at those. We'll look at some the things that I think are most interesting in DeFi right now. I don't want to just go over every single fucking DeFi chart. I want to give you what I am getting in position in, and take it from there, right? So I think we have everyone is good to go. Let's see, did I not say hi to anybody? Again, go ahead and hit the like button. Good morning to everybody. Yeah, sound is finally nice because my idiotic self had two sources of audio hooked up at the same time, so we only need one. I was pulling from two different microphones. I appreciate that, TE. Yeah, so today we'll get more news, but positive thoughts. Okay, so with BTC, just really quick to go over the higher time frames. It's within a range, right? Within a range gives you all the time in the world to think about what way it's going to resolve. But what we're seeing right now is that we are at what would be resistance defined by many different systems, right? We're running into daily resistance, right? So this is a daily level right here. This is a weekly level right here. So we're running into two types of sellers, right? Your higher time frame sellers, your daily sellers, your weekly sellers, your traders that they only want to get involved when there are big changes in market structure. Now, there are no huge changes in market structure up here. It's still within you could look at this, if you look at it on a monthly, it's within a monthly range. So this is the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. After 6 monthly candles in a row of progress upward, this is the first inside candle. So even if you were to define a system, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a Bitcoin chart that is clean, that I don't have drawings on. It might be a Coinbase one, just so we could draw new stuff because I have my other chart marked up. It'll be relevant shortly though. But even if you were to define this just on a monthly time frame, monthly range, it's a good system or a good approach. You can see that we've been within this previous monthly candle now going on. We've been within this structure now since February, the end of February, right? So very much a bracketed market, obviously it's a consolidation, a range, whatever kind of word you want to apply to it, or however you want to call it. It doesn't matter, prices, it's not trending whatsoever on the higher time frame. So we're running into two types of sellers, okay? So your higher time frame sellers, your higher time frame buyers, a lot of them are going to be going off of changes in market structure, right? Big changes in the trend, whether it's defined by something like a moving average, whether it's defined by structure. As I've said before, one of the more significant levels within market structure that I'm focused on is the 20 period. Just an area where we could expect some type of algorithmic activity, some type of systematic buying, and some type of discretionary manual buying as well once we return to it. Now, it could return to us or we could return to it. It's just an arithmetic mean, right? So it's just an average. That's all. If price were to move sideways long enough, every single moving average would line up and be flat. So that's an area where there's a good amount of confluence, as you can see with this weekly level right around 45. So we are within this higher time frame range. We did not explore the lower portion of what the larger range is, technically. What we have is, if you were to break this down, you could see that there are really, and I've gone over this before, it's a higher time frame range, but there are sort of two ranges within it. All right, so what you have is, and this was a very brief range, but it was a bracketed market right down here. So you have a trend, breakdown, consolidation, trend, and then another much longer range. And this midpoint of the structure, depending on how you look at the structure and how you're defining a range, it's where we are technically at right now, right? So we have this daily level right here that also lines up with a weekly level. So again, this level right here, right around, let me get the exact area, it's right around 55.5. So we're running into an area where you could expect some resistance by, again, just higher time frame participants who are maybe approaching this now as an area to de-risk, an area where the trend might be changing. It's certainly not trending. So it is a reasonable, it's reasonable to expect a good amount of resistance in this area. Give me 1 sec. I'm just opening my kombucha and black tea with cayenne pepper. So we have that, right? We had a good sweep of this low. Okay, so we had, let me just use the native trading view tools now. Let me get rid of that fucking watermark. We had a good sweep of this daily low. We reclaimed it, but we're back into another daily resistance. So more or less between a rock and a hard place. We've been here many times before. It's good that on the higher time frame, you have this sort of 3-drive structure that did resolve in a very impulsive and bullish fashion. And I think that most importantly, what you want to do if you're still judging this, if you're trying to ascertain the health of the higher time frame trend, is say within this trend, what has happened at the lows, right? Are we still seeing the same spot bid? Are we still seeing, a large amount of demand at these lows? You just have to look at it as, if it's a trend that's very attractive, rather if it's an asset that's very attractive, you want to see a real sense of urgency at the lows to get into it. And until you have that sense of urgency, you probably haven't found the low yet. Well, we actually did have, you could say that we did have a large amount of urgency and aggressiveness by spot participants at these lows. So at these lows, this entire range, especially out of the low and just kind of up to today, honestly, it seems like it's more or less dissipated. You did have this spot premium, whereas now it's more or less fallen off a little bit. So Coinbase was trading, so we have Coinbase right here, was trading at a consistent premium over the futures exchanges, right? So perpetual swaps and over some of the spot exchanges. So it almost looks like, and this is not something you want to get too far down the rabbit hole with, because as you can see, it could get you in trouble with expectations, that there is some type of large spot buyer down here. And it looked like they were essentially just TWAPing in, right? Buying at market over time, right? Sort of this systematic buying, just market buying, right? Chewing into any liquidity that was provided in the ask. So that was out of the low, but now we've kind of lost that. So we're into this daily level, we're into this weekly level, finding resistance after the first significant breakdown in market structure. So the reason why I say that this is the first rather than all of these breakdowns is that this is a 3-drive structure at the high. You've taken out a daily level, taken out a weekly level, taken out 2 daily levels now. So if you're just judging the trend based on that, right? If you're just a pure market structure guy, a series of higher highs and higher lows along here, and now you have kind of just knocked out that structure. As far as the integrity of that structure in terms of progression upward, you've broken it down. Come on, hit the fucking eraser already. So we're running into a significant resistance. It's not to say that we cannot go to move sideways and then continue to break up from here. We actually have a very similar pattern here. So we had 10 days down. This we just had high conviction selling down, have this response off the lows, and it kind of looks like you have this little candy cane structure the same way that we had it back here. So higher time frame structure looks good, honestly. I think I should just cap it off by saying that. It does look good. Not to say that we can't get another test at the lows. The best thing about this higher time frame structure, I think, was that off of the lows, we did see a really consistent spot buying presence. But that brings us to the lower time frames. What more affects us in the day-to-day? Because we are at this resistance, it's not an area that I would really want to long into, right? So not necessarily an area I would want to long into. If I was looking at this based on just progression of the daily structure, so let me go to daily real quick. Or actually, zoom out and looking at these prior ranges over the course of days, This gray area that we have, okay, this is a value area for this 3 to 4 day range, right? So where we spent most of the amount of time, where most of the trading was done, any one particular price point might not be that important as much as where we spent the most amount of time and where buyers and sellers were in most agreement. So once we break down from that, we form another composite down here. As you can see, I have them labeled, so 50,600 to 48,900 area. And then the low of this previous composite in this previous range, which is 54 to 59 area to 50, just right around 57. So the problem that I have here is that you have that confluence between that daily level, which is at 55,929. You more or less you had acceptance within this prior range. Okay, we didn't take out these highs, but we did have a rotation up that has failed. So you have kind of a lower high. I'm just kind of indicating that across the structure, it looks like we do have a lower high forming locally, and any attempt to hold this range from a value area and just from my market profile trading, from my opinion, from rather my approach, it's not holding where I would want to see it hold. And you can kind of see that this was a pretty defined low until today, right? So this 54,250 area, you can see that if we're looking at a 4-hour structure, multiple closes above that, right? Just respecting it, very precise level, and then now have just broken down through it. Now you could go back to this prior structure and look at it as a whole, right? You could say that this low is just as important as anything else, and then yeah, you're still within it. I see a structure like this, and I think that it's probably going to roll a little bit lower. We have lows that were uninterrupted so far. You have a gap down here. So being that it's at resistance, right, not a very attractive place to long. If I was looking for a long right now in terms of a swing, right, if we're looking for any kind of short to mid time frame trade, right, or mid time frame hold, what I would want to see is that, if this is going to break up, that this low is now put in and that we're above this daily level, right? Now that we've had kind of this fight down here, and it might honestly, actually, if from just a range standpoint, if this is the value area low, now that we've nuked this, not nuked it, but now that we've broken down outside of it, my mouse is moving too fast, excuse me, that's why my hands are like shaky. Now that we've broken out outside of it, if we reclaim it now, so if we reclaim 54.6, maybe we'll get another press towards this daily level. So right around 55.9 again. Just doesn't look as strong as I would like it to see. But I do think there's a good long opportunity lower, right? So you have a gap down here. You have an area that is an inefficiency, has not been interrupted yet, has not been returned to or cleaned up yet. And that's right around a nice structural area around 50,600, 51,000. I believe the top of that gap is 51.5. So that is an area where I think we could find support. You just wouldn't want to see that price after rejecting off of this daily and weekly level is coming back down here. You have to imagine that you have varying levels of confidence in something. And if you're coming all the way back down here after this significant response, it's just not an area where I think I would want to see price return to. Being that we still have another daily level around 45 and that higher time frame trending tools and moving averages that do look kind of ripe for a return. So value area that we're in right now, okay, let me just zoom out in terms of time frame, not zoom out, excuse me. Zoom in, put on the profiles. Again, around a 4-day composite, breakdown, efficient move down, 3-day composite, took the lows, big move up, and this is what you're having trouble getting acceptance back within right now. So if we do roll, I would anticipate that it's right around here. So I'll go to exo charts in a second and show you what gap I'm looking at. But I would anticipate that if we do roll, that should be an area where we should see a response. So a very quick response out of that. And you still have lows. You do have a daily low down here that has not been cleaned up yet, and it is a poor low. Other than that, longs above, very clearly longs above this previous composite. So again, if we reaccept back within here, so if we start trading above, I think a good measure is something like today's high, right? So if we're starting to trade back above today's high, right, or today's open around 54, I think today's open was what? Let's see, what is today's open? 54.7 area? One sec. So today's open is, what do we have? Where's the open? 54.8. If you started trading back toward today's open, right, not even necessarily above it yet, but if we start just trading back above today's value area high, back within this prior composite, then yeah, we could again get the play through the range, and your first sticky area might be back at that daily level. But so far, we have had this big rejection, and normally if we leave a rejection like this and we return back up to it, you expect price to move through pretty quickly. I don't really anticipate that a rejection like that would offer the same type of response a second go around. And then if we're above composite value area high around 57, then you're looking back at the underside of this previous structure, which lines up with that box is our previous this was one of the most important daily levels leading up to this all-time high. So brief support on the way down, and that area is right around That's right around 60,000. Above 61,000, and I think you're just, back into price discovery above the all-time high even before you get there. So what I'm saying is if we're above 61,000, I doubt that this acts as a resistance again. I think that things could get pretty slippery, but I think the market overall would look a certain way up to that point, right? We'd probably have a lot of energy and momentum at that point if prices were turning back up to these highs. So BTC looks good right now. It's just in terms of the profile, we did clean up this low. This is the area that I'm focused on. So we have a poor low over here. So that is right around 53.3. So that is yet to be taken. You can see we kind of just came into that. We have a gap right around here, right around 51. It's right around 51. I thought it was 51.5. It's 51.7. So this would be an area where I think that if you rolled into, you should see a pretty decent response out of that. And that lines up with the highs of this previous range that we had built for 3 days. So it just happens to be where we are right now. I just don't think it's the most attractive area. This is beginning to shift, but the point of control today has migrated. So initially a point of control was right here. And now moving into these lows, you can see that the point of control is beginning to shift. It's actually kind of right where we're trading right now. You can't see it on, I don't think you can see it on your chart, but it's the blue bar that's kind of highlighted in a little bit of purple. I don't think you could see it on your YouTube. But the point of control right now is at 51.7. And that is by volume. So the thing about this structure is that as we've transpired from left to right, from down to up, back down, the point of control has begun to migrate south. So ideally what you want to see, and this would be good if you, let's say we finished the day like this but started trading higher, then you could look at a structure like this and say, all right, so a lot of the volume is trapped down there. But so far what this looks like is that price was unable to hold where most of the volume came in. Ideally what you want to see is if price makes a move up, you want to see that the point of control remains supportive below you, right? So you'd be transitioning, the point of control would be transitioning higher, right? So overall the high volume level would be transitioning higher, but each time price would be maintaining it as support. Because what you can think of is, again, I've said this many times before, the point of control is just where most of the activity had been put on, where most of the trading took place. And if you're just looking at it one for one and, buyers and sellers equally, if you are under where most of that activity took place, clearly anyone who sold is in more control than anyone who bought, right? So hopefully that all makes sense. Let me just pop the chat out now because I can't see it if I'm on that screen. Okay. One sec. All right. So that's what I see with Bitcoin. There's nothing, one of the things that I always focus on is, positioning on the higher time frame, positioning on the lower time frame. And you'll see that funding is beginning to tick up towards the right side of the structure. I'm going to show you on the footprint what you're seeing also in terms of aggressiveness. It kind of helps that. Overall funding, right? If we look at the higher time frame structure, overall funding is way more attractive than you would want to see at any other period, or rather we had seen at any other period, right? So what you could see is that this is very flat funding. Open interest took a big hit, right, off of this drop. You can imagine that a lot of that leverage was taken out of the market. When funding is like this, it says a couple things, right? It could say that there's a good amount of selling pressure still, but there's not a big increase in open interest. So I don't think it's a lot of derivative selling. It could be selling it could be hedging spot. So there's not a large notional value that's added, and it just could be accounts hedging spot. So there is actually maybe, there is a good amount of selling to open, but it might just be, margin. It might be, in terms of notional values, it might be low. Another thing about the funding being low, it signals to me that we don't have a ton of participation down here, so that if price does move up, maybe you'll get more of those participants coming in back, right? Coming back in, right, to buy when price moves higher. It's not overheated, so that's a really good thing. Previous areas within this trend, it was very overheated. Right, so we've shaken out a lot of the leverage, it seems, but if it begins to pick up again and we're continuing to move flat, then I get worried, right? Overall, the structure on the higher time frame, you would want to see this, right? At the lows, the funding stays flat, right, and even goes slightly negative, which we saw. So that's a good thing. That is a good thing. You have a ton of liquidations down here, but the problem is what you don't want to see is that immediately if you start moving up, that it really begins to track kind of one for one with price also. So it's not going to be one for one because it's not like that. But if price moves sideways, the worst thing would be if price moved sideways and funding began to continue to tick up. Even if it continued to tick up marginally, it would just signal to me that this is positioning buy longs on futures. The spot, as I said today, it's kind of, it doesn't seem to be present. So you could see that Bybit, for example, is trading above Coinbase. Now it's marginal. At times it's going back and forth, and you really have to normalize these things for higher prices, because as you can tell, maybe a $10 difference up here is way, it's not maybe, it is. $10 difference, a $50 difference up here is a lot different than when we were down at, below 20K. So you can't just apply it the same way you used to apply it at lower prices. Did I say prices or places? That sounded funny. This is the problem when you do live streams. You're just talking nonstop and no one's talking back. So unnatural. But I would want to see that, if anything, let's say that price continues to move sideways. And yeah, this is a good shift in market structure, because, I've said this is similar to patterns we've had before, right? We're at the lows. We've had this significant response, right? It's kind of like back here. Even going back here, it kind of looks weak for a while, right? It does look kind of weak, but it's not something you're seeing longs get really aggressive at. If anything, shorts are betting against it, and that would look good, because you're still closer to the bottom. There's really no change in market structure. There is this kind of under over. So if you continue to, let's say we continue to hold, for example, maybe not my value area, but it doesn't really matter that much. If you continue to hold this level, right, above 53.6, then maybe this is the beginning of a transition. If you continue to hold that and funding didn't get really elevated, I didn't mean to draw that, and funding didn't really get elevated and it stayed neutral, then I would be really confident. It's just that it's beginning to tick up, and we're also seeing that at these lows, there is a lot of aggressive buying. So it's not that, it's going to sound funny, because you want to see buyers, right? But you want to see more absorption than anything. So instead, you're having good amount of selling volume come in, but it's doing its job of moving the market lower, right? So for the selling volume that's coming in, it's pushing price down. And you're thinking, yeah, well, obviously they're selling, but what you want to see is a ton of selling volume like this, but price still able to trade above this, right? You would want to see, you don't want to see this, like what's happening over here right now. Price, they're selling at the low, and it would be great if price continued to hold this level now. I said you don't want to see this because as we were seeing that selling, the candle was beginning to continue to come down. You want to see that there's a bunch of selling, right? And then prices continue holding this. So you have the selling, but price is still up here, right? You don't want to see that for the selling that's coming in, it's able to move price, right? So you want to see absorption by the bid. You don't want to see a bunch of aggressive buyers who are marketing into the bottom on leverage, or what they think is the bottom, right? They're buying in thinking they're buying the bottom, but they're buying it on leverage. They're buying it at market. So again, it's not exactly what you would want to see, right? This is what makes the funding go up, when you have aggressive buyers on futures, right? That's what makes the funding go up, when they're taking liquidity. And it's just not how bigger, smarter players usually operate. Maybe on the low time frames to throw the market around, but for a bottom, you would want to see that it's passive absorption more than anything else. So a lot of the times what I notice is the pattern is that when it looks structurally good, but you have mostly what is dominant aggressive buying at the low and not a ton of passive absorption, it usually rolls over more. Right? You usually see that these buyers don't get rewarded. Those buyers get in a very hasty manner. So, that's one thing to point out, right? They're just buying at market. So let's go to ETH. Does that make sense, everybody? Let's go over it real quick. Give you guys a second. I know there's a little bit more, what's it called? There's a lag. So we have the lows down here that haven't been taken yet. So maybe we'll see a response here. Oh, okay. Guys, for a second, my mother called me, and I was like, ah, shit. I was watching on my phone, and, everything. My grandmother had a stroke, so just kind of waiting and seeing how that progresses. But it's a positive message, so we're good. For a second, my heart was kind of in my throat, and I was like, ah, shit, I'm going to have to end the fucking stream early. Not like that would be a problem for grandma, but I think you understand. Okay. So I think BTC looks, yeah, rounded top. Doesn't look that good right now. Yeah, and Gary, yeah, exactly. More buying vol than selling vol. You want to see more passive buying than anything else, though. But like I said, if we sweep this low, for example, and we're trading back above today's value area, then this begins to look a little bit more attractive, right? But then you're already seeing by doing that it's a shift in market structure on the low time frames. No, I'm not a team bear, Captain Youth. Just looking for local trades, right? I don't think that BTC, guys, I'm still maintaining higher time frame. I'm still keeping my original thesis that Bitcoin's going to be ranging for a while. And if we look at, we're going to go to ETH next. I'm an ETH maxi, and this is why I'm an ETH maxi. So ETH on the higher time frame, just really breaking all levels, right? Breaking all levels, really showing what looks like a higher time frame market bottom against Bitcoin. Now, the one thing to guard against is maybe this happened last cycle where Bitcoin topped and ETH continued to. So Bitcoin topped. Remember, no one thought Bitcoin topped. Everyone thought it was just getting ready to go up again. And ETH moved up for the next 2-3 weeks after. So this looks great. I know there are some fantastic things with ETH with regards to the actual how, EIP, or I can't even think of exactly what it is, what exactly it is, right? The acronym and the numbers. But there is good reason to assume that ETH is really going to be strong moving forward, right? Against not only against BTC, but against USD. Okay. I'm not I don't follow the BTC charts too much, just for relative strength, but I feel like I normally have a finger on the pulse with that. But this is what I constantly am looking back at with ETH. One sec. Is this higher time frame chart? Where is it? I didn't add it. The highest time frame chart with ETH. We just have been hanging around the all-time high. So I think it's very unlikely that ETH only, after an all-time high, ends up putting in less than a 2x. Just very unlikely. And it really looks like it's beginning to pick up strength now. So for ETH, one thing about ETH that's really positive as well, and this is more than BTC, we'll go to the structure in a second, is so EIP 1559. Thank you for that. ETH, right, continue to make progression upward. Same thing with funding, right, being very low. I think that part of the reason why ETH funding is low, and let me just zoom out, is that you have, what looks like another high in market structure, kind of an area where a bunch of people are starting to get uncertain. Is this going to be the high? Everyone's trying to call the high. So you probably have a good amount of people hedging their spot exposure with ETH. So they might be long spot, but selling futures. So we see that as ETH is progressing upward, funding is staying very flat. New positions are coming into the market because open interest is increasing. Spot with ETH is a much different story than with BTC. I forgot to go over that. So look at the spot CVD for ETH, right? Continued progression upward. Before I go back to BTC and look at how that is, it's the opposite. One thing about ETH that I really like is that previous highs, so 1, 2, which are lower than where we currently are now, are actually higher in open interest. So again, just focus on these two levels. We're lower than where we were previously in open interest. So what I think with ETH is that there's a lot of people hedging. There's a lot of people that are sidelined. So in terms of open interest, just think of levels of participation. One thing you always want to be worried about is when you have, for example, the market coming up into a new, previous level or a level that it's testing and the open interest is really high. That goes back to, we'll go back to Bitcoin. Because what that says is there's a lot of people pre-positioned for an outcome that they think is probably going to happen, right? So they're maybe very long up to that point, and that just, to me, it sends a signal that anyone who can be long, or the majority of people that can be long, are long, and then how is price going to continue to move up if a lot of people are already long? And that sounds kind of overly simplistic, but there is merit to that, right? When you have more longs in the market, you have more future sellers. So if we look at Bitcoin, I made this example a while ago. Bitcoin made a 5% increase in price, but the open interest increased by around 20%, right? So it was actually, excuse me, around 16%. So from the previous highs, you have around, 15, 16%. So what that said is after this high broke, you had a ridiculous increase in positions come into the market. So it was like this was the greatest breakout trade of all time. Problem is, more people came in than this previous high, and price went for, it didn't go as far, right? So there was more participation and less work to show for it. So ETH is the opposite, right? ETH is working. I would say it's putting in less of an effort and getting more of a result. So what I think when I see something like that happen is there's a lot of demand for ETH, not only a lot of spot buying, but the bid is consistently bidding this up as well. So you have actually less derivative buying, right? You have less aggressiveness, less derivatives opening period, and just more of an organic spot demand. And one thing I forgot to point out was Bitcoin is the opposite. Honestly, the one thing that's kind of troubling about BTC is, yes, out of this recent low, yes, we did see, right? We did see a spot demand over here. So you had that spike, but overall the trend in CVD has been down. So that's another thing. And I think that's why I don't think that you're out of line if you are kind of uncertain about the macro direction for Bitcoin for the next couple months. It's hard to tell right now. That's what makes trading very difficult, is that during these consolidation periods, you have all the time in the world to think, because you're not really near any significant level, especially when you're in the midpoint. You have very clearly defined levels, but by the time you get there, it's a little late, right? By the time you get down here, you're a little bit behind. It means you've either lost or left some off the table, and you're still operating within an area of uncertainty, within a lot more area of uncertainty. ETH is a completely different story right now, right? ETH is continuing to put in new highs. You're not having any kind of overheating. On the lower time frames, this is actually a very attractive grind upward, right? So what we have is trending days after trending day. Prices kind of more or less coming back to fill out any kind of imbalances, right? You have this stair-stepping activity upward, trading above previous day's volume consistently. So again, points of control, right? So you have value migration over time. So value area over time. You have volume consistently supportive of the trend. This honestly looks like it's going to be, I would think ETH is going to be over 3,000 in the near future. So those are my 2 cents on ETH. I want to get into alts in a second. I just want to check on the chat. So bounce here would look like a pretty obvious inverse head and shoulders. Would you agree? So I'm not a patterns guy, in the sense that I don't first look to them. I don't first look to patterns before anything else. But after a pattern occurs, I can get behind it, because I think that there's a fair amount of people that buy based on them, right? So are you talking about something like this? See, when I look at this, I don't see the pattern of inverse head and shoulders. I just see what shows a sign of strength, right? That's all certain patterns are. They're just signs of strength, right? Inverse head and shoulders says that sellers were able to push this down lower and lower each successive time, and now suddenly buyers are in control, and now we're trading back above a level where the last two areas of higher time frame sellers had been most present, right? So you have a transition, and it ends up looking like an inverse head and shoulders. I don't think the pattern or labeling it so much matters as you understand what's taking place. And the same thing when you're looking at a flag, right? When you're looking at a flag, you're seeing a trend. You're seeing something that after a really strong impulsive move is consolidating, but buyers are in far more control than sellers because they're able to bid this up more, right? So they're able to bid this up more. There's a sort of a pressure cooker that's taking place over here, but buyers are in control, right? They're able to bid this up more, and it's probably going to resolve to the upside. It sounds so simple and stupid, honestly, when I'm talking about patterns, because I don't trade them based on, you know, the textbook pattern way, but I look at them based on how I perceive the underlying activity to be, right? Which is an under over, right? So an inverse head and shoulders, you have a low put in, you have a lower low, and then now a sign of progression is retaking that previous level. You know, the best sign of progression would be something that isn't a head and shoulders that looks like this, right? So let's say that overall this is your first low, and then that's your head. The best sign of strength wouldn't be honestly trading and hanging around this low. It would be trading above that previous shoulders, I don't know, pectoral. If this was the body, this would be the boob, right? Upper pectoral. So, but no, I'm not a patterns trader, but yeah, I can see what you're saying. Let's see, BNB. Bake, Adam. Yeah, so I'm going to go over some of the charts that I wanted to go over before the stream, some things that I wanted to point out. I said I was going to go over what I am most interested in, and then I'll take some questions. So what to pay attention to as ETH is outperforming, I think that you're going to see that DeFi and alts are going to really be outperforming as well. You're seeing a sign of strength with a lot of the main DeFi pairs again. So for example, Sushi is something that, you know, regardless of it being a competitor to Uniswap and, you know, copying Uniswap, scams pump for a long time, right? Even if Sushi wasn't going to be something that was around in the next 5 years, it could continue to make higher highs and higher lows, right? We've seen this many times before. It doesn't have to exactly make sense. But what we're looking at with Sushi is this daily level that was respected for going on 2 months. Now we've had this under over, right? So we've had a breakdown on high volume. So we had to move into the low on high volume over here. One sec. So we had this breakdown, series of lower lows, right? So we have basically a 3-drive structure. And now price is over here reclaiming this daily level. So we zoom out and we just see that the daily level that I'm talking about is more or less, let me get one nice line on it. I think you could say that more recently, this right around 14.65, you can see it's really clean on the daily. Then you get a breakdown, it's acting as resistance, but we get a break back above it. Come back down, and the first retest you have is right back at that level. So consolidating against it now, but I think that this ends up breaking up, okay? Because you have what is, if this is a lower time frame trend, if it's a higher time frame trend, a lot of the times you will see, you know, consolidations will be very clean. So you might have this sort of boxed out area, right? And then you'll get a strong move through the low. It looks like it's going to be a reversal or a continuation to the downside, and instead you're trading back within it. So this is the kind of pattern that you see take place all the time, where market fakes down, like it's going to break down, and then it's trading back within this range. And honestly, when you see this, right, if this was a previous range for a long period of time, when you reclaim it, you're looking for a play back up to the high. So with Sushi, that's honestly what I expect. I think that you're probably going to, you know, you're having trouble at that daily level right now, but I think that the transition is becoming a bit more clear, that it's going to be transitioning back upward. Ray, this is something that I'm building and have started building a substantial position in. Let me get this scaling right. So Ray, it looks like, has broken out of what was this higher time frame range, right, that we were stuck within going back into February. Now, the thing about Ray is I thought Ray was going to require a deeper accumulation period, right? So it would trade here, break up, fail, and then trade much lower back in the single digits. Now with Ray, it looks like with the strength of Sol, with the strength of SRM, that it's probably going to be following those two. And if we start seeing strength in DeFi, if we start seeing strength in ETH moving forward, see continued strength, I don't see any reason why. As you can see, I have an alert set around 18. I don't see, that's where I would be first taking profits. I don't see any reason why after this break, right? So we have a very clear range, break on high volume, as long as this level holds. So we're looking at that level, which is right around 1250. As long as we don't, you know, nuke this level on the higher time frame, meaning, we lose it substantially. I think that this is an area where you could expect support to be found and ultimately to see us resume continuation upward from. So this is a range. This is your breakout. Your support and resistance flip should be at this level, right? Since it had been a very important level previously. Now it's a very brief amount of history that we've had. This only goes back, right? This is only listed and came into existence as of this February. But I think that this is a reasonable play. So I'm adding a spot position. I was trading this like a madman going back to last week even, but I just think that this is worth putting on a position that you forget about. Well, I forget about, right? To each their own. But this looks to me, it looks strong. If Ray, for example, does something on the low time frame, nukes this level, I wouldn't be surprised if within a day we see something like this. You see a move down that ends up reclaiming in a short amount of time. So I don't want to get shaken out of this. So I want to say that I have a very defined level. But this is just the first area I want to see support form, and I'll add to the position if we start showing strong structure around here. I don't know if I'll necessarily just scrap the position if we lose it. Because again, I think that you could easily chop around a little bit more. We've done this many times before with I'm just trying to think of pairs that we've had. I think it was Sol and Cake. So we'll put them on. Where you've had what looked like a really tight range. So we'll go to Cake. You had a nice range back here. It looked like this was the break. This actually ended up coming back within a prior range and then went on to trend out of it. So you might have even looked like at Cake the way I did originally and thought that this was the significant close above a daily and weekly level, right? And this chopped around, we're looking at that daily and weekly level. That chopped around for 2-3 days, right? Going on 4 days before resuming upward. So I don't want to get thrown out of this because I think that this is something worth forgetting. What's going on with... All right, so ETH is the best hedge in the world right now because, wow, ETH is just showing complete strength against BTC. Bitcoin is, oh, you know what, guys? It's not even doing much. Here, let me show you what I'm looking at. This is why I don't like to have this up there in the stream. It's distracting. The spot and the futures tapes right here. And it just started picking up a lot. The velocity just started increasing a lot. So I thought I was going to be looking at the charts as something much different. But ETH, let's see. So, excuse me. Now that I just lost my train of thought. So Ray to me looks like a really strong long-term play. SRM, same sort of deal right now. I want to see that this 819, 820 level access support. I think you could probably extend it to that weekly high as well. Oh, it's the same level. Never mind. So you have a breakout of this range, and you want to see that this 820 levels maintains as resistance, right? I think the whole Solana ecosystem is going to be the play for the foreseeable future. Solana, Avalanche, a couple of these, I would just say, underexplored areas within the market that probably are going to be strong for the next couple of months. So I definitely want to be building some decent spot positions in any pairs related. I just want to cover, I had something else I want to cover before I go into your charts and your questions. So we went over Sushi, Uniswap, looks like trend resumption to me. So this looks like a very clean structure on the higher time frame. So you have a weekly level, you have the daily level, the same thing. So this is your daily. So look at this whole area of resistance. Consolidation, breaks above, retest, fails, underside retest, now back above. I would expect that this is the move that leads to a more, I guess, one-directional play moving forward. So I think that Uni's probably going to be trending pretty hard as long as it can maintain this daily level and this is not just some fake out. We could be completely wrong with where we are within the cycle, but just have to trade the technicals a lot of the times, in my opinion. This is a really strong trend. This is a bracketed market for going on 2 months, 3 months, and this looks like it's the first real exploration outside of all of these daily and weekly levels, right? So we had initially a daily and weekly level around 35, failed breakout above it, retest, and now we have a break again that hopefully is going to lead to a higher conviction move up. Is there anything else that I had a watch list on? FTT, same thing as ETH, I think, in terms of showing signs of strength, right? So ETH against BTC, just really holding its own, right? I think the market is in ETH mode right now. FTT against Bitcoin, still same thing, right? Very strong pair right now. So you don't have to necessarily short Bitcoin to hedge it. It looks like being exposed, and I'm overweight ETH right now, which might have been a rash decision yesterday to add as much as I did, but I believe in buying higher. So in strong trending markets, they look scary. So something like this looks scary to buy, but you don't realize that it's been doing this the entire way up, looking scary at certain points. And with longer term holds, you don't place a trade and then look back at it 10 minutes later, right? So you might look at this really zoomed in on 15-minute time frame and think, well, this looks kind of frail, but really is just a strong trend that's grinding its way upward, right? Someone could be vertically accumulating this, and we could be above 3K in no time. Just look back at the chat, take some questions. Yeah, so Greg, the thing about ETH is I have nothing against that belief at all. I think that that's true. I think it's reasonable to expect that ETH can come back down to even around 24, right? So if we look at higher time frame structure right now, I mean, all in all, the thing about something like this, so I had said, this is either 2-3 days ago, it's very unlikely that you have a triple top, right? So we are back here. So this is actually going back to around the 26th, 27th, which is, 2-3 days ago. I said it's very unlikely you have a triple top, right? I don't think we're in like crazy breakout stage where the market is right now. I could be wrong, but and what that means is I would normally want to say with this, like, all right, so this is a significant level of resistance. Break from here. I don't want to see necessarily return to here. If you have an area that has been resistance for a long period of time and you finally break through it, you want to see that the buyers really bid this up and don't really give many opportunities for entry. The thing about this is this is going on now only 2 weeks. So it's not like an area of structure that had been fought over for 2 months. So it's reasonable to expect, I think, without too much worry, the price could come back down to test this daily level, right? 2 times tested on this is a 12-hour chart, but if we look at this on the daily, right? Generally speaking, on the daily, one daily close pivot up here, but still, you could see that it was resistance in the time in between, right? You have this sort of W structure. So it wouldn't be out of the question for that to come back down there, and I wouldn't be worried at all. And actually, I think it would be a good opportunity to buy, right? I would look to add to probably a futures position at that point. So go back through. $15 in your Phemex account. Which token is best for a long or sell trade? I don't know, man. That's it's not a question I ever answer. I don't ever tell you what specifically to do with your money. Let me just pull this up over here. BC started move. Yeah, so I'm in some smaller plays. I shared them on Twitter. So I don't like to share the small stuff too often because it's just too thin. Okay. Link, Matic, yes. Had a nice long in Matic, took it off too early. All right, so Matic, Link. Oh, all right, hold on. I think that Link is, hold on, that's not the right chart. I don't think that Link is, like, I think Link is kind of cooked. I mean, not in the sense that it's going to roll over, but I just don't see Link, like, there's been nothing exciting about Link recently. Just this kind of boring grind up. But I guess you could say the same thing for ETH too. But it does not, even though it's moving up, it just something about it doesn't really excite me in terms of strength. But that's kind of stupid, right? Because as long as we're holding market structure, that's all you could ask for. So if we're looking at this on the daily, looks like maybe this is the failed breakout to reclaim of this daily range we were within going back to February. So this is your daily range, right? Failed breakout. And then maybe this is the reclaim and reholding of that level. So this could be continuing upward. It does look, I don't know, it's something weird about it, right? It just kind of fell off the map in terms of relevance. It looks like it's losing a little bit of momentum on the weekly time frame too. I think when you look at it on the weekly, you could see this sort of change. So for example, this is the best way to put it. Look at the daily, look at the ranges. And we're looking at a log chart, so keep that in mind. So look at the ranges and look at how things have compressed over time. Right? Very tight. So I don't know what to make of that. It just looks like a loss of momentum. I bet if you put an RSI on this, you'd have a bearish divergence. So I don't know if that qualifies, but it's lower highs than the RSI. I don't trade RSI, but I think that's a bearish divergence. So, I mean, you don't have to look at a tool to see that the rate of advance has declined. And that's what a bearish divergence is in momentum. The rate of advance has declined, right? So, Matic, have that on my DeFi watch list. Matic honestly looked like Solana. So I wasn't in Matic early, but I was in Matic on time, put it that way. Matic looked like Solana, and I'll bust out the Solana chart and show you that these two charts looked pretty identical. So strong move up, very tight and clean range. So same thing with Matic, very strong move up, very tight and clean range. The best thing about these, and this is one of my favorite structures to trade because it is just a fake out a lot of the time. Matic had it, Sol didn't. Is this right here. So it's a cleanly defined range. So that's your high point. One sec. Sorry, excuse me. This is your high, but this is your daily range for the most part that you're within. All right, so zoom out. Very tight, high and tight. Take those lows, horrible artist. Take those lows, right, and then reclaim. So this is just showing strength, right? Any kind of significant move down through the lows, no continuation, instead is trading back within this level, is just giving you signals, all types of signals. The break above the daily level is where I added to position, right? So just the reclaim of this daily level, this highest point, it's not a daily level, excuse me, it was an all-time high. Just this reclaim is where I added, but ended up taking off around 80. So, but Matic looks like it's on its way to $1. But as you can tell, right, running into a little bit of trouble up here. So as long as, if we range somewhere within here and maintain this low, I think you're good. Right, so maybe you come down here, test that low. But, if you don't want to see that Matic is falling back within anywhere that's a gap. So gap is like this right here. So areas where price moved through really quickly, right, without much resistance, not much taking place there. It's kind of just a breakaway gap. So where's BTC? So in one sec. So nice tail on Bitcoin now. I don't know if this just breaks down from here, but spending a good amount of time below these lows. Sellers are able to impart themselves in the market, impart their will. So any selling is pushing the market down. You want to see that ultimately you run into a point where there's a ton of selling, but price is able to trade above this level. So this is looking somewhat decent down here, but not quite there yet. Go back to the chat. No, I don't do any yield farming. I don't do any yield farming, no. Yeah, so see, this is the kind of thing I don't want to see. Kind of having it all right now. So Coinbase on the way down, you're still seeing Bybit trading above Coinbase. You're seeing Coinbase trade below everybody pretty much. And now you're beginning to see a little bit of speed pickup in selling on spot. So this is spot. This is futures. So see, there's not a ton of selling coming. There's not as much selling coming in as the prior candle, but you're having still the same amount of results in terms of price movement down. It's just not what you want to see. You want to see an imbalance, right? Most of that selling coming in at the low, price able to hold that, rather than this consistent selling that is able to move the market. Because what this is just showing you is that the bid is not staying in front of that, right? So we're not seeing a bid protect any level that might be, or rather give us any idea of an area that might be support. Now, I would expect that maybe, again, that area is around here. I'm looking down here at this gap, but it's entirely possible for us to wick into one of these lows that we put in on the way up, right? These are your trailing stops maybe. Take some of that liquidity. It's hard to imagine that this just rolls over from here. So I do think that you find some level of interruption into this area. And then I would probably look for, so now starting to trade. All right, so now we have a little bit of volume coming in, but we're able to hold. Still seeing some aggressiveness though. Not a lot of volume though when you consider these higher prices. But if we were to find a low, then I would still anticipate something like today's point of control acting as resistance. So we just put in K period. So that's not necessarily very good. Nope. So let's see if we can find a tail. Sorry guys, just watching this as it happens. Don't even have my screen opened up. Nah, it looks like it looks like it wants to just drop. Ooh, there we got some trap sellers down there. Let me just pull your chat up while I'm watching this. A little bit distracted. Yeah, I think DeFi, yeah, 51, yeah, exactly. Ah, here you go with your liquidations. Here we go. Let's get it started. Start hitting some of those stops. Start liquidating some of those positions. I don't really trade with margin, Nikita. I trade mostly, I use leverage for counterparty risk, but I never really increase my exposure. So whatever margin it takes for me to satisfy my position requirements. Depends on how much I have exposed on each exchange compared to what my portfolio is. But some people, if someone can answer that question right away, like someone says I trade with 10x leverage or I trade with 5x, I don't know, it's a little kind of, that makes me think that they don't use leverage properly to begin with. I don't really use margin in the sense that I get extra exposure. So whatever margin is required for me to build my position size. So yeah, aggressiveness at this low. So maybe a short-term bounce, but right now you're seeing that it's consistent that Bybit is doing most of the buying. Somewhat even now, but there's not much of a Coinbase bid even. So maybe you get a little bit of a return up, but this looks like it wants to test out the single print zone. Yeah, Okitoki is awesome. So love this. I love what he's done with it. In the beginning, I really liked it, but I couldn't find much use for it. But I do like how they have the trades by delta now. Last 5, 30 minutes, 1 hour. And I love checking out all the new order flow platforms to begin with, even though this is just one aspect of it. So yeah, XO is simpler than Quantower. Quantower has all the trading features you need. So yeah, the problem with this is now you had a ton of aggressive buying at the low. Already buyers are getting trapped right here. So that's why you don't often see that lows get put in with a ton of volume over here. You know, lows get put in like, let's find a nice low. go cherry pick a low. This is all lower time frame stuff, but if we zoom out, yeah, so for example, lows don't get put in like this with all the aggressive buying at the low. Let's go find a good low. We might not have many up here because, again, there's been a transition of futures buying compared to spot. So I got to scroll back some. Of course, it's not going to allow me to go all the way back. So, I mean, you have traps back here, which is good. But again, there's a lot of... This is a 15-minute time frame, though, so it's not really the aggregation I would want to use. But we're just looking for a more dominant side being at the bid. So a lot more volume at the bid. So if we put on the delta cluster or the delta ladder, and we just put on delta, one sec, delta profile, you want to see that overall at the lows there's mostly sellers that are absorbed, so aggressive sellers. Over here it looks like there is, one sec, mostly aggressive buyers, right? At the lows. So positive delta down here. So not how a bottom usually gets formed. So, but how long are we into this? We're an hour. I actually have to run, guys, because my mom is texting me about my grandmother. So unfortunately I have to cut this. BTC, just some finishing points. So Josh is also going to be doing a video, guys, in the near future, which is good because he'll cover a lot of alts. He might be going live or he might be posting a video. I'm not necessarily sure, but it's going to be public. Bitcoin at higher time frame resistance. You're into two big type of sellers, which are daily time frame sellers, weekly time frame sellers. On the higher time frame, I would say there's good swing plays between these levels, right? So a swing above that daily, back up here. Currently play back down to this level, which is another daily level. I refine it based on profile, but it's completely normal for a lot of traders to focus mostly on these higher time frame levels on the daily and weekly. And as you can see, it's doing its job, right? So regardless of whether or not it's the value area or not over that comp, it doesn't really matter. It's still acting as resistance. Higher time frame levels, though, right? Some area we still haven't visited that wouldn't be necessarily an end all be all place would be this 45 level. So don't be surprised if we come down there, and don't, shit your pants if we do either. This structure does remind me of this over here, right? This over here, though, you see that there's a lot more impulsiveness in the activity. So if you're looking at one versus the other, it seems like this one has lost a little bit more energy, right? So just be careful. All right, guys, that will be it. Everyone have a fantastic evening. Bitcoin's dropping, probably has a little bit further to go. And I will talk to all of you soon.